Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and it's time for another episode of LokeQuest. What is LokeQuest? I'm glad you asked. This is the series where I will be taking the Loki's Books of Battle Mats, specifically the Dungeon, Castles, Crypts, and Caverns, the Little Book of Battle Mats, and any other ring-bound books of battle mats that I acquire from Loki's Battle Mats products, as well as the 2021 edition of HeroQuest. And I will be merging these resources together to create a quest based on what I get from the Game Master's Book of Random Encounters by Jeff Ashworth. We have a lot of resources going on here, and you may think that this is not totally accessible, but really the point of all of this is to show what you can do with the Loki battle maps if you are interested in that line of products. And if you haven't already grabbed the Game Master's Book of Random Encounters, it was available at Five Below for $5. And that may seem obvious, but there are some things at Five Below that actually cost more, some less. We can turn to a random page and get an instant scenario that is compatible with 5th edition, but we're going to be shoehorning a lot of the features from this book and its 5e scenarios, its one-shots, into HeroQuest. We'll be using, of course, the 2021 edition of HeroQuest, which has the tiles and traps and miniatures and game board, of course, that match the same grid size as the Loki battle mats. It's the standard 1-inch grid. So, without further ado, let us turn to a random page in the Random Encounters book and see what we're going to be making today. Bequeath upon us today's quest. And that is... this is going to be pretty simple. Now, I actually turned to the beginning of a section called The Great Outdoors. Forest, fortresses, beachfront battlefields, and placid parks for when your party needs some fresh air. We're going to be recreating the Campfire Cove. So we're going to be taking some key features from this scenario, right down to the 1d6 and the little encounter table here. But we're not going to use all of this stuff exactly as is. We're going to create an interpretation of it. And you could do this with the HeroQuest board by itself just as easily as you could with extra battle mats. This is just to provide you with some inspiration should you already have these resources on hand, or if you are planning to get these resources and you're just not sure how you would use them with HeroQuest or any other dungeon crawler. A coastal clearing that's a perfect spot to bed down for the night. This serene space is also an attractive watering hole for beasts of the nearby forest, as well as bandits looking to lie low. Now, just from the fact that it's going to be a campfire, I already have a map in mind for this. And so really the variation is going to come from what maps should we put around this to make it even bigger, more complex. So we'll get to that. What other features do we need to know about this? The surrounding woods give Campfire Cove enough cover so that a small campfire doesn't alert the entire realm to one's campsite. Any light source can be seen from the sea, however. In fact, rumors of the creatures who dwell beneath the waves being tempted to come to ground by the glow of a warming fire have persisted almost as long as those that tell of the site's location. So it's a great spot to stay the night, but it's only as safe as any other in this land. It looks like there are semi-permanent structures mentioned, which were sponsored by merchants, members of the Merchants Guild, and the structures can offer some modest shelter from the elements. There's a large boulder at the beach's edge, and it's partially illusory with a dugout hole for treasure or dead drops hidden within the rock itself. For the encounters, we can roll to spawn a trio of owlbear cubs, 3d4 bandits, 2d4 ettercaps, an etten, or a marrow, or perhaps a massive tidal wave. But again, we're going to be translating this to HeroQuest speak, so onward. I found it. If you take Castles, Crypts, and Caverns, Book of Battle Mats Volume 1, which Volume 1 and 2 do come in a set, pages 35 and 36 have a great campsite, and it is partially obscured, but it could be seen if you're at the right angle, so they said from the sea. I think I found a good partner for this map. It's going to be in Volume 2 of the Dungeon Book of Battle Mats, and it is page 4. Alright, so far so good. In my mind, this is going to become a wave battle situation, because the waves, to get it, okay. I think there needs to be monsters here, and then the heroes have to clear them out by defeating every single one of them, and they get access then to the benefits of the campsite and are able to gain a certain amount of resources before night falls completely. And then every hour from midnight to 6, the heroes take turns, they take shifts staying awake, so one hero or more could remain inactive for that entire wave and get all of the benefits of rest up to a certain amount that is absolutely required. Past that just gives you more benefits, and the other heroes would actually deal with the wave. And in between waves, an hour would pass, and the players would get to determine which hero would be awake, which hero would be asleep. More than one in each category if they choose to do so. But you can't have all of the heroes asleep, or else all of the monsters who invade will take them out. I think I would start the heroes out something like this. They're already around the campfire, and then they are ambushed by a group of orcs, and this is how the quest should begin. This is how you know these orcs were using the campsite. It provides a reason for the campsite to be there, all kind of fully furnished and ready for the heroes to use. Now the heroes take their first turn, and there are monsters in their line of sight everywhere. So take out as many orcs as you can. They will eventually be closing in, depending on Zargon's mood. But when all of the orcs are gone, that is when our timer really begins. So there's not an actual timer. There's not any kind of limitation on how long you have to perform any given action. It's just that go ahead and perform the actions and movement that you would like to be in the spot you want to be in before saying, all right, we are done. We know who's going to be awake, who's going to be asleep. The fire tile here is going to be very important. Your heroes need to be adjacent to it, either orthogonally or diagonally, in order to be considered resting. So all of the heroes get to decide in between rounds which ones are going to be asleep and which ones are going to be awake. And you will have 6 total rounds or 6 total waves to deal with before morning arrives and this place is considered safe and your heroes are considered rested and able to move on to their next quest. Who is resting and who stays awake is a matter completely up to the heroes. They can decide, for example, that the barbarian and the wizard can stay awake for 3 of these rounds and sleep for the other 3. If your barbarian is kitted, he may decide that he could stay awake for the entire time and just fight off all of the nasties that come to invade their camp. But this can't happen because every hero needs to have a total of 3 rounds where they have rested. You can convert this to 2 rounds if you want to make it a little different, a little easier, less of a challenge, maybe even more fun for your party. But 3 rounds out of the 6 means that half of this entire campaign, your hero is choosing to rest rather than engage in battle. Now, what happens if your hero does not get their required amount of rounds of rest before the next mission? Well, you can choose to completely debuff them. You can have them start out with a decrease in body points, mind points. You can charge them gold for the refreshments that they will need on the way since they weren't able to get a good rest. There's any number of things you can do, including nothing at all, and give your heroes a buff for resting instead of a debuff for not resting. That is up to the type of table that you run and the type of party that your table has. I'm going to say that they're going to need 3 rounds of rest in order to be able to progress to the next scenario. And if for some reason they can't get their required 3 rounds, if a hero has to die while protecting the camp, so be it. We'll just start over and be more knowledgeable. Okay, so I'm talking about rounds and waves. To me, these are going to be synonymous. They're going to be the same thing in this scenario. We have a table of 6 different possibilities. Like I said, we are going to be converting these possibilities to HeroQuest. So one of them is a small trio of owlbear cubs wandering to the shoreline. Their mother isn't far behind. When I think HeroQuest and I think bears, I think war bears. Polar war bears are from the Frozen Horror expansion. They are really strong. They are meaty, and it would be quite a shame if a pair of them happened upon your camp. So I think we could do 1 instead of a pair. Now, Zargon knows which one of these waves he's going to put onto the board at any given round. You could go ahead and just pick one, and you could release them in any order. You could do it after the heroes have decided who's going to stay awake and who's going to sleep, or you could do it before and let them know what they see in the distance coming towards them to allow them some preparation and give this scenario a little bit more strategy for the heroes. It's up to you. But we're going to replace 3 owlbear cubs with 1 warbear. So where the warbear spawns is up to Zargon entirely. I would say that it's fair to spawn the warbear at any of the 8 tiles in the 4 entrance exit points around the campfire map. So as soon as the heroes are done deciding who's going to sleep and who's going to stay awake, we'll just have any hero who's adjacent to the campfire be considered asleep, and any hero in any other tile considered awake. The barbarian has strategically positioned themselves kind of central so that they're able to rush to whatever location the warbear appears at. And even though there's not a line of sight between, say, this tile and this tile, Zargon should still put the polar warbear on the tile, because the warbear is making just enough noise that the hero is going to know exactly where he's at. So place your monster down wherever you're going to place them, and then the hero will commence their turn. So if the barbarian's the only one awake, now we're going to run into the situation where the barbarian will meet up with the warbear. Again, if the barbarian is overpowered by the warbear during any point, they can say, "I wake up the elf," or "I wake up the rogue," "I wake up the wizard." Whoever they want to wake up, they can call to. And now this hero, if they accept the call, can choose to wake up, and they will now be involved in the battle. They will, however, be giving up their round of rest that they so desperately need. When the heroes manage to take out the incoming threat, they are given a turn to prepare themselves for the next one. They can take any healing items they want, position themselves back around the campfire. There will be no searching for treasure. I mean, you don't really mind if you want to search for treasure. Yeah, that's up to Zargon. If your heroes want to search for treasure, they can do it every single turn in this massive room, and you can just draw treasure cards. And there will either be buried treasure or there will be wandering monsters. Because we started out with orcs in the campfire cave, the wandering monster will be a pair of orcs. Hey, to the brave go the spoils. The next encounter is 3d4 bandits posing as merchants. I don't really like that idea. I think it should just be a ton of goblins. I would roll all of the combat dice, all 6 of them, and for every skull, put a goblin at one of the entrance points. You could choose to spawn them outside the camp as well if you want. Now, if you're having trouble keeping track of which turn or round or wave it is, and you've got the Little Book of Battlemats Towns and Taverns edition, this is a great use for the ship. In fact, you can have the ship start out kind of here at the edge where the tiles meet, and then every round come in 1 or 2 tiles. This is just to kind of give a visual indicator that the night is progressing rather than the movement of an actual ship just outside the campsite. But at some point, this ship is going to be right here, completely lined up with the adventure books and in full view of the campsite, and that is when you can bust out more enemies. Before that though, let me recommend my top 6 picks for encounters that happen throughout the night. A pair of wolves, the single warbear, a trio of gremlins. These are ice gremlins, but we're just going to call them gremlins, and we're going to try to popularize and normalize the recontextualization of the frozen horror enemies, such that they are not frozen or limited to cold biomes. A trio of abominations. These things come from the water. Perhaps they are the ones coming from the ship. By the way, if they do come from the ship, I would have them start on the ship, and I would give them a bonus to their movement because they're going to be able to traverse through this water very quickly. A single specter. This is from Rise of the Dread Moon, and you can of course look up the stats of the specter and simply proxy it with another miniature if you do not have the specter. And finally, 6 goblins. 6 is the number that comes with the game system. If you have more goblins, absolutely roll up more goblins or make it a possibility that more than 6 goblins could appear. With that done, the only question really left to ask is what happens when a monster attacks a sleeping party member? Now, as Zargon, your monsters should always target the heroes that are awake, because those are the ones that are threatening. If you manage to defeat all of the awake heroes, then all of the heroes who are asleep will awaken, and then the wave will continue. You can choose to kill off the heroes that are defeated, or simply knock them out, and it will take them a whole nother round to recover. Now, this could affect your party's chances of winning the scenario, so adjust accordingly if you think it needs to be adjusted. But a monster will get a free attack on a sleeping hero after all awake heroes are defeated, and that sleeping hero will not have a chance to defend, but will wake up in the next turn, regardless if the monster hits him or misses. And that is it. I hope you enjoyed my Camp of Death. This was a really fun one to put together. I'm really glad I landed on that particular page, the Campfire Cove. If you've got any questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions, absolutely use those in your game. You are the one with the answers at this point. Take my template and build off of it. I would love to see your coastal creations. That's it for now, brave heroes. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Comment anything you like below, and I'll see you at the next one. Until then, onward.